Hello again everyone, this is B. Harper from supermarcy.com and yet again I bring you a Guillermo del Toro feature. Pan's Labyrinth is one of my favourite films of all time, and I feel I can say that without any sort of reservation whatsoever. The moment I saw the movie, the moment I sat down and experienced it, I was just wrapped up and enchanted and just overcome with a sense of this is how I want my movies to be. And when I say that, I obviously don't necessarily mean every movie has to be exactly like Pan's Labyrinth. But in terms of the elements that I find intriguing and the characters that I love to watch, Pan's Labyrinth has that. Not only does it have incredible imagination and just beauty, it has a sense of substance about it. There are two things of which I consider this film to be. It is a violent film about innocence and a fairy tale about life. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at two of the primary characters in this movie and what they represent. First, you have little Ophelia. Little innocent Ophelia. She has been she's been moved around with her mother to, live with Captain Vidal, because Vidal is going to marry his mother, or rather her mother, I mean to say. And this is during the Franco-Spanish Wars. So Ophelia is very much displaced in time and displaced in place. So the way that she deals with everything that's going on is that she creates an imaginary world. She has a very astute and beautiful sense of imagination. When times get hard, this world is where she goes. And make no mistake, this film is not a sort of fairy tale for the kids type of movie, but with the character of Ophelia, she makes this world in order to be strong. This film is about resilience through hardship, spiritual sensitivity, and innocence in an uninnocent time, and the power of imagination. And while Ophelia is about optimism and trying to find the best in things and trying to make the most out of circumstances, Captain Vidal is the polar opposite of that. But at the same time, he does retain a similar type of mindset to Ophelia, just deeply tainted. So Captain Vidal is violent, insecure, childish and idealistic in what he wants and what he expects. And he also represents what Ophelia could be if she didn't remain true to herself and kept her compassion. And there's a fascinating theme with Captain Vidal's character is that he possesses a broken watch. And it is an heirloom that he has kept from his father. And what this watch, to me anyway, represents is the fact that time can be broken or wasted. And in Vidal's worldview, you either act now or forever hold your peace. You either ride or you die. And there is no sense of error with Vidal. Everything about him is calculated, and that is not just down to Del Toro's direction and the story writing, but Sergio Lopez's performance. Now, I made it abundantly clear that I loved Lopez's role in the Villains podcast I did with Nick and Beat, which I shall link down here. But the reason why he is so compelling is that he is so deeply flawed, but he doesn't want to acknowledge it. He wants this notion about himself to be pure and strong and not being able to be questioned. He wants to be seen as the ultimate figure of authority, and Ophelia challenges that. Now, she doesn't necessarily, come to open blows with Vidal, but the way she looks at him, she sees him as a dark force in this world that she cannot live with. She can't accept that this man is to be her stepfather. So when she formulates this universe and this dimension to retreat back into when times get hard, it is a dark gothic fairy tale, and the avatar of this is Pan, played by Doug Jones. And Doug Jones just was an overdrive in this movie. He plays the character of Pan as well as the Pale Man, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But Pan is like, you know, was based off the Greek entity of mythology. So what Pan was all about was about, you know, temptation, mischief, giving over to the wilderness and all of this. He's just a very sort of, you know, he was the it. He was just letting go of every single inhibition you have and just living however the fuck you want. And what's really disturbing about this is that you have the character of Pan, and Pan was a very sort of licentious character. There was no boundary to what he did. So it's very fascinating and a little bit troubling that he has come into contact with Ophelia, that Ophelia has, you know, created this character to lead her deeper into this world that she has created for herself. And yeah, when you read the original sort of storyline of Pan's Labyrinth, when Del Toro was first starting to work on the movie, it was so wildly different, but it still retains that sense of wonder and mysticism about it, not the least of which comes from the imagery in this movie. What's really cool is that there are two worlds in this movie. You have the real world that's being torn apart by war, that is inhabited by Captain Vidal and altered by him, and then you have the wonder world created by Ophelia, where anything can happen at a moment's notice. And the real world is a brutal place, but it is also essential for Ophelia to sort of grow up in and sort of develop a sense of endurance about it. But the wonder world is about letting your imagination just go wild and experiencing the possibilities, and not allowing the obstacles of reality to get in your way. It's really, really fascinating, because you can't decide as to whether or not both worlds are either good or bad. And that's what the character of Pan also represents. In mythology, he's not necessarily evil, but he's not a wholly benevolent and selfless creature. Pan, in a sense, is like humanity, and that's probably another reason why Ophelia has sort of come into contact with this character, is that deep down she realizes that, you know, innocence can be fallible, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you can't have a sense of, you know, wildness about you. You know, you can't just go through life and have a negative outlook on it. You got to have a sense of magic about it, and that's what Pan is all about. He may be about corruption, he may be about, you know, bending the truth, but at the same time, he's not there to destroy you. He just wants to bring the animal out of you. And yeah, let me just get to the ways of the wonder world. So Ophelia is of the mind that she is the reincarnation of a princess who lives in the underworld, and Pan is saying, Pan is saying to her, you know, if you can complete these tasks, if you can prove yourself that, you know, if you can prove that you are the princess, you will return to the kingdom of which you come from. And much like a hero's quest, like Ophelia faces countless hardships and obstacles, and it's not just in the wonder world, but also in the human world, or rather the real world. And, you know, she's come to terms with the reality of her mother marrying a tyrant and just what this would mean for her. But this endurance that she's developing, it starts to rub off on her, and it starts to inform her choices in this world. For example, Ophelia has been caught doing some, you know, sort of naughty things around the house, so she is being punished and confined to her room. So when she retreats into the dream world, she finds herself, you know, coming into the lair of the Pale Man. And the Pale Man is the boogeyman. He is this long, angular creature that has fat, sort of like, you know, falling off him. He's an emaciated skeleton, but his human flesh is still hanging on. It is so grotesque to look at, and that's just a testament to the makeup that's in this movie. Holy crap. And of course, Doug Jones' performance. Jones is a very physical actor. He's very graceful, and he understands the grammar of what it means to create a wholly physical character. So the pale man is sitting at the head of a table that's just laden with all sorts of delicious goodies and food and everything. And by this point in the real world, Ophelia is starting to feel very hungry because she has not eaten, she has not been given sustenance. So she is told by Pan to not touch anything on this table, otherwise the pale man will awake and chase her and kill her. But when she beholds this table and just sees all the mouth-watering food on the table, she can't help herself. And she just takes like one piece of food and eats it, and suddenly the pale man wakes up and it chases her, and holy crap, that entire scene, it is nightmare fuel in the best possible way. But it also serves to sort of, re-establish the fact that, Ophelia, despite being innocent, she's not infallible. She is fallible, and she's flawed. She's a human being. She's a little girl. And of course, like, when a child is hungry, they will take any sort of opportunity they can in order to get some food. They don't do it out of malice, they're just doing it out of necessity. And, the temptation just became too great for her. And it's just really, really cool that, in a sense, Ophelia and Vidal, despite being polar opposites with each other, are kind of two sides of the same coin, just in different ways. Ophelia, for lack of a better term, is good, and Vidal, for lack of a better term, is bad, but both of them have their quirks. Both of them have their sense of identity and have their troubles and their concerns and everything. And when the film ends, I'm not going to give away the ending here because it is just too good, but there's a sense of, the worlds have finally come into alignment, just not in the way either expected. And it's just so awe-inspiring. It really, really is. Everything about this movie is highly imaginative, but it doesn't sort of labour away on, making the dream world look and sound and feel amazing. There's a reason for these things to exist. And as I've said before, there's nothing worse in a movie than having a completely thankless character to carry the film. And I'm so grateful that Ophelia and Captain Vidal are like the principal characters in this movie. Everybody else is great, don't get me wrong, and the actors are incredibly likeable and they do what they do, but these two central characters and their actors are like the main draw points of the story. This is what this film does to me. It just causes me to ramble about all this, psychoanalytical stuff. But at the end of the day, Pan's Labyrinth is indeed just a meditation of the power of imagination and human resilience. But at the same time, it offers to us that we aren't an untouchable species, and stuff will happen to us that we don't like, but it's something that we have to fight through. But it is our decision to fight. That is what matters. We can either sit back in our wonder world and just like exist there for the rest of our lives, or we can continue on and try to find a compromise in what we're doing. We can try to find our way into the world and make our mark, and just, yeah. I'm really sorry about wasting your time like this, guys, but if you haven't already seen Pan's Labyrinth, please do so. It is one of the finest films that you will ever see. So, as you can probably guess, I will give Pan's Labyrinth a 5 out of 5. It is almost flawless, and it's not often I say that about a movie. So yeah, that was my review / incomprehensible argument and analysis. So thank you very much for listening to me, guys, and as usual, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.